1.3b, squares and square roots. So in the box at the top of the page, it says the product of a number and itself is the square of a number. The product of a number times itself is the square of a number. The factors multiplied together to form the perfect square are called the square roots. A radical sign is used to indicate a square root. So basically they're saying square root of 25 is 5. Here is what I would like for us to do along the side of your paper. You're going to need this list. Are you ready? They're saying if I take 1 squared, that's 1 times 1, which is 1. 1 is a square. If I square root 1 with a radical sign, I get back to 1. Now that one's really boring because all you're seeing is ones. Let's do some that's a little more exciting, right? So let's go 2 squared, which is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. So that the square root of 4 is 2. Because it took 2 times 2 to get there. Next, 3 squared. 3 times 3. What is 3 times 3? 9. So 9 is one of those squares, or called perfect squares. The square root of 9 is, what would it go back to? 3. So we're going to continue on for a little bit. 4 squared. What's my next perfect square then? 16. And the square root of 16 is 4. So this list, this part of the list, these are the squares, and this part of the list back here would be considered square root. The radical sign that you put over that square tells you to perform the operation of square rooting. Some people don't know it's called a radical sign, but it's called square root of 1 or radical 1. Now, if we needed to, could you guys tell me right here, without writing the first part, what's my next perfect square? What would the next perfect square be? 25. And what would the next perfect square be? 36. And what would the next perfect square be? 49. And what would the next perfect square be? Surely somebody else knows it besides these two. Come on, what's the next perfect square? Caden.
The next perfect square is 54, I think.
Not 54. Can you tell me, Caden, how they got 49? Well, how'd they get 49?
Oh, they took 7 times
7 times 7, so the
64.
64, because it's 8 times 8. See what we're doing there? What's the next perfect square, Macy?
91.
Huh?
81.
81. What's the next perfect square? Somebody else. 100. And we could just keep going, couldn't we?
Yes.
Those are lists of perfect squares. And when you go to square root them, you are getting the number you use to multiply by itself to get there. So what's the square root of 25?
The square root of 25 is 5 plus on 68, actually it should be 64.
I did write the wrong thing. Thank you very much for telling me. I don't know. I was thinking 8s and 64. Good job. I messed up. Thank you so much. All right, so let's look at what they've got there. They've got the square of 5. To square 5 means you take 5 times 5, 25. The square of 16. Oh my gosh, they want you to do 16 times 16, 256. I would prefer you not do this part and go ahead and do 16 times 16 on your paper. Square rooting, square root of 49. Well, if you look at my list, what did I use to get there? A 7. And the square root is 169. So you might have to extend this perfect square list to find some of these. They're going to use an application. A square tile has an area of 144 square inches. What's the dimensions? So if we've got a square where all the sides are the same all the way around, and it was 144, well, for this you take, it was 12 times 12 to get there, right?
Yeah.
So they're saying the square root, or the length of the side, would be 12, because the square root of 144 is 12. Now we're going to do some of these odd examples at the bottom of the page. So if it's asking for you to find the square of a number, that means you take the number times itself and tell what you get. So number 1, somebody tell me, what is the square of 2? Caden? 4. What about number 3? What is the square of 14? Emily?
3.
Number 3, what's the square of 4? 14. 14. So number 3, it says square 14. So you got to take 14 times 14. That's what they want you to do. So you got to find the square of 14. Emily, what is it? 196. So the square of 14, 196. Number 5, what's the square of 21? What's the square of 21? So that means you're going to do what? You're going to multiply 21 times 21, and you got 441. Did anybody else get that? All right, 441. Now we're going to look at square roots. Find the square root. So number 7, if you've got your list, this should be pretty simple. What's the square root of 16, Kirsten?
4.
4. All right. What about number 9, 256? What times what gave you 256? Sarah? Andrew?
7.
So, nope, 7 times 7 wouldn't give you 256. Square root of 256. Square root of, Jade? 16. 16. So 16 times 16 would give you 256. So when you square root 256, that's it. All right, one more. Number 11, square root of 361. It's making you work, isn't it, to get up to 361?
23.
Not 23, because look, 21 squared was 441, so it's got to be something less than 21. What number times itself would give you 361? What is it?
19.
19? It is 19. Oops, 19. So you have to figure out what number times itself gives us that number, 19. Questions?